Maya Jensen had exactly 3 rules for surviving as a delivery driver in New York City. 1. Never take the subway shortcuts after dark. 2. Always check the apartment number twice before knocking. And 3. Absolutely never, under any circumstances, get involved with the customers. Tonight, she was about to break all 3. The pizza box balanced precariously on her left palm as she squinted at the faded numbers on the building's entrance. 4782 Park Avenue. Check apartment 23C. Check. She'd been doing this job for 8 months now, working her way through graduate school one pepperoni pizza at a time, and she prided herself on never getting an address wrong. The building was one of those old pre-war structures that somehow still radiated elegance despite decades of weathering. Ornate molding framed the entrance, and a doorman who looked like he'd seen better days nodded at her without really seeing her. Maya was used to being invisible. In her stained red delivery jacket and worn sneakers, she blended into the background of the city like graffiti on a subway wall. The elevator groaned as it carried her up, the ancient machinery protesting every floor. She hummed along to the music bleeding through her earbuds, some indie song about love and loss that she'd been obsessed with lately. 23 floors up, the doors opened with a reluctant ding. The hallway was quieter here, carpeted in deep burgundy, with soft lighting that made everything look like an oil painting. She walked down the corridor, checking apartment numbers. 23A, 23B, and then, there it was. 23C, except something felt off. The door was slightly ajar, warm light spilling out into the hallway. Maya hesitated, her finger hovering over the doorbell. Maybe they were expecting her. Maybe they'd left it open on purpose. She knocked lightly. No answer. Knocked again, a little harder this time. Still nothing. Against every instinct screaming at her to just leave the pizza and run, Maya pushed the door open wider. The apartment that greeted her was nothing like the cramped studio she shared with 2 roommates in Queens. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering cityscape. Modern art hung on exposed brick walls, and furniture that probably cost more than her entire year's tuition was arranged with careless elegance. And standing in the middle of it all, fresh from what must have been a shower, was a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne advertisement. Water still glistened on his chest, dark hair wet and tousled, a towel slung dangerously low on his hips. His body was ridiculous, all lean muscle and sharp angles, the kind of physique that came from having a personal trainer and too much free time. But it was his eyes that caught her. Steel gray, sharp enough to cut, and currently staring at her with an expression somewhere between surprise and annoyance. Maya's brain short-circuited. The pizza box slipped from her hand. Time seemed to slow down as she watched it fall, the box opening mid-air, slices of pepperoni and mushroom performing a tragic ballet before splattering across what was definitely a very expensive Persian rug. Oh God. Oh no. This isn't happening. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those gray eyes. Amusement, maybe, or murderous intent. Hard to tell. Maya dropped to her knees immediately, frantically trying to scoop pizza back into the box, her face burning hotter than the pizza oven. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, I thought, the address said. I didn't mean to. He moved then, closing the distance between them in 3 long strides, and suddenly he was crouching beside her, so close she could smell his soap, something expensive and cedar-scented. His hand caught her wrist, stopping her frantic cleaning attempts. "Stop," he said. His voice was deep, controlled, the kind of voice used to being obeyed. "You're making it worse." Maya looked up at him, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp jawline, lips that quirked at the corner like he was perpetually amused by some private joke. And those eyes. God, those eyes. I'll pay for the rug, she stammered, even though she had maybe $200 to her name, and this rug probably cost more than her car. I'll work extra shifts. You're in the wrong apartment. What? Maya blinked. The pizza box still dripped in her hands. He stood up, offering her his hand. When she didn't take it immediately, he raised an eyebrow. Unless you plan to spend the evening on my floor, in which case I should at least know your name. She took his hand. It was warm, calloused in unexpected places, and he pulled her up with effortless strength. Maya Jensen. And you're not apartment 23C? He almost smiled. I'm apartment 23D. Your customer is next door. Relief and mortification washed over her in equal measures. So I just broke into your apartment and destroyed your rug for absolutely no reason. That about sums it up. He tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Though I have to say, it's the most interesting thing that's happened to me all week. Maya knew she should leave, should grab what was left of the pizza, apologize 17 more times, and flee to the correct apartment. But something kept her rooted to the spot. Maybe it was the way he was looking at her, like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. Maybe it was the absolutely insane awareness of the fact that he was still shirtless, and she was very much noticing. I should go, she said, not moving. Probably, he agreed, not moving either. The moment stretched between them, taut as a wire. Somewhere in the building, someone was playing classical music. The city hummed beyond the windows, and Maya stood in a stranger's apartment, holding a ruined pizza, feeling like her entire carefully ordered life had just tilted sideways. What's your name? She asked, before she could stop herself. His smile was slow, dangerous. Ethan Blackwell. And you, Maya Jensen, are going to stay for a drink. It wasn't a question. It was an order, delivered with the casual confidence of someone who expected to be obeyed. And against every rule she'd ever made for herself, every warning bell clanging in her head, Maya found herself nodding. One drink, she said. Then I really need to deliver this pizza. What's left of it anyway? Ethan's smile widened, and Maya realized with a sinking feeling in her stomach that she'd just made a terrible, wonderful mistake. Ethan disappeared into what Maya assumed was the bedroom, leaving her standing in the middle of his devastated living room, still clutching the pizza box like a shield. She took the opportunity to really look around. Everything screamed money. Not new money, flashy and desperate to impress, but old money. The kind that whispered rather than shouted. The art on the walls wasn't prints, she realized. Original paintings, signatures she vaguely recognized from her art history elective. A first edition Hemingway sat casually on the coffee table like it was light reading. Even the way the furniture was arranged suggested someone who'd never had to think about making a small space work. When Ethan returned, he'd put on a black t-shirt that somehow looked as expensive as a suit. He'd also brought a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Make yourself comfortable, he said, gesturing to the leather couch. I'll get glasses. Maya perched on the edge of the couch, careful not to touch anything else. This is insane. I should not be here. But she was here, and some reckless part of her that had been dormant for far too long was suddenly wide awake. Ethan returned with 2 wine glasses and poured with the ease of someone who did this often. He handed her a glass, then settled into the armchair across from her, close enough to feel intimate, but far enough to feel intentional. So, he said, swirling his wine. Tell me about yourself, Maya Jensen, who delivers pizza and breaks into apartments. There's not much to tell, Maya said, taking a sip. The wine was incredible, smooth and complex in a way that made her usual $7 bottles taste like regret. I'm a graduate student, art history. I deliver pizza to pay rent. That's pretty much my entire existence summed up in 2 sentences. He studied her over the rim of his glass. Art history. That's why you were looking at my Rothko like you wanted to analyze it. That's a Rothko? Maya twisted around to look at the painting she'd barely glanced at before. The abstract blocks of color suddenly made sense, the depth and emotion that radiated from the canvas. Oh my God. That's an actual Rothko, in your living room, where you could spill wine on it. Ethan's lips quirked. I don't usually spill. Maya turned back to him, emboldened by the wine and the surreal nature of the entire situation. Who are you, Ethan Blackwell? He leaned back, and something shifted in his expression. A wall going up, subtle but definite. I'm nobody interesting. Just a guy who works too much and apparently has terrible luck with pizza delivery. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. His tone was light, but there was steel underneath. Maya recognized a boundary when she heard one. Fair enough, she said. But you know my life story, and I know nothing about you, except you have excellent taste in art and wine. That hardly seems balanced. So ask me something else, anything you want. The offer hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Maya took another sip of wine, feeling it warm her from the inside. Why did you tell me to stay? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer, more genuine. Because in the last 6 months, I've been to 43 business dinners, 27 charity galas, and countless meetings where everyone wants something from me. And then you crashed into my apartment, destroyed my rug, and looked at me like I was just a person. Not a bank account, not a connection, just someone. Maya's heart did something complicated in her chest. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. He laughed, the sound unexpected and warm. And that's the most honest thing anyone said to me in months. They talked for an hour, then 2. The pizza was abandoned, growing cold on the kitchen counter, where Ethan had finally deposited it. Maya learned that he was 32, that he ran some kind of investment firm she didn't fully understand, that he'd inherited this apartment from his grandfather and couldn't bring himself to sell it even though it was too big for one person. Ethan learned that Maya was 26, that she was writing her thesis on female artists in the Renaissance, that she'd grown up in a small town in Ohio and sometimes missed the quiet. He learned that she had a cat named Picasso who was an asshole, and that her favorite pizza topping was pineapple, which he pretended to be scandalized by. You're one of those people, he said with mock horror. Next, you'll tell me you put ketchup on hot dogs. I'm from Ohio. Of course I put ketchup on hot dogs. Ethan clutched his chest dramatically. I need to rethink this entire evening. Maya laughed, really laughed, and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this light. Outside the windows, the city had shifted from evening to night, the lights below twinkling like a second sky. She checked her phone, and her stomach dropped. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. What? I never delivered the pizza. She jumped up, panic flooding through the wine haze. The actual customer at 23C. They're going to report me. I'm going to get fired. I need this job. Ethan stood too, catching her arm gently. Hey, breathe. I'm serious. Maya tried to pull away, but he held firm, not painfully, just steadily. This is my life. I can't just... I'll handle it, Ethan said. What? I'll go next door, apologize, order them a new pizza. Tip generously enough that they won't complain. Problem solved. Maya stared at him. Why would you do that? Because, he said simply, I'm not ready for you to leave yet. The words landed between them like a confession. Maya's breath caught. She should say no. Should insist on fixing her own mistakes. Should definitely not be feeling this pull toward a man she'd known for less than 3 hours. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Ethan's smile was slow and devastating. But you have to promise me something. What? Stay. When I get back, stay. Just for a little while longer. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Ethan grabbed a shirt from the bedroom, shrugged into it, and headed for the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at her. "Don't disappear on me, Maya Jensen." And then he was gone, leaving Maya alone in his apartment, surrounded by expensive art and the lingering scent of his cologne, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to. Maya should have left. Every rational part of her brain was screaming at her to grab her bag and run. Instead, she found herself wandering around Ethan's apartment like a detective searching for clues. The bookshelf was a mix of business texts and classic literature. Fitzgerald, Hemingway, some Vonnegut. A worn copy of The Great Gatsby sat apart from the others, its spine cracked from multiple readings. She pulled it out, and a photograph slipped free, fluttering to the floor. Maya picked it up. A younger Ethan, maybe early 20s, stood with his arm around an older man who had the same sharp jawline, the same gray eyes. They were both smiling, genuine joy radiating from the image. On the back, in faded ink, someone had written, "Dad and me. Last good day." Her chest tightened. She carefully replaced the photo and the book exactly as she'd found them. The kitchen was pristine, the kind of clean that suggested it was rarely used. She peeked in the fridge. Takeout containers, a bottle of champagne, some expired milk. The freezer was worse, just ice, and a single frozen dinner from a brand that cost $30. "He doesn't cook," she murmured to herself. "Doesn't really live here, just exists." It made her sad in a way she couldn't quite name. This beautiful apartment with its $1,000,000 view, and it felt more like a museum than a home. She was examining a sculpture that looked suspiciously like a Giacometti when the door opened. Ethan walked in carrying 2 pizza boxes and a bag from what Maya recognized as an extremely expensive Italian restaurant nearby. "Mission accomplished," he announced. "Your customer is happy, generously compensated, and will not be calling your boss. He also thought I was your boyfriend coming to rescue you, which I didn't correct because it seemed easier." Maya felt her cheeks heat. "Sorry." For the boyfriend assumption? He set the food down on the dining table. "Don't be. It was the most interesting conversation I've had with a neighbor in 3 years of living here. He usually just complains about my piano playing." "You play piano?" Ethan glanced toward a corner Maya hadn't fully explored. There, half hidden behind a room divider, sat a beautiful grand piano. "Used to. Haven't touched it in months. Too busy." "That's sad," Maya said before she could stop herself. Ethan looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. "Yeah. It is." The moment stretched, heavy with things unsaid. Then Ethan cleared his throat and gestured to the food. "I figured you probably hadn't eaten." "I know I haven't." "And I got your pineapple pizza, even though it hurts my soul." Maya laughed, the tension breaking. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to." They sat at his dining table, which was probably meant for formal dinners with important people, and ate pizza straight from the box like college kids. Ethan had also bought pasta from the Italian place, some kind of truffle situation that tasted like heaven. "So," Ethan said, spinning pasta on his fork with surprising skill, "tell me about your thesis. Female Renaissance artists. That can't be an easy topic." "It's not," Maya admitted. "Most of them have been erased from history, or had their work attributed to male contemporaries. I'm focusing on Artemisia Gentileschi. She was incredible. Painted herself as the hero, as the victor. In a time when women were supposed to be silent and decorative, she was loud and unapologetic." Ethan was watching her intently, and Maya realized she'd been gesturing with her pizza, probably looking ridiculous. "Sorry. I get passionate about this stuff. Don't apologize." His voice was warm. "It's refreshing." Most people I talk to are only passionate about profit margins and stock portfolios. What about you? Maya challenged. What are you passionate about? He was quiet for a long moment, his fork suspended in midair. I don't know anymore. Honest answer. The admission seemed to cost him something. Maya reached across the table and touched his hand lightly. That's the saddest thing you've said all night. And you've said a lot of sad things. Ethan turned his hand over, catching her fingers. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, and Maya felt that touch everywhere. I used to love music. Piano. I'd lose entire days just playing. My dad, he was the one who taught me. Said music was the language of truth, that you couldn't lie when you played. When did you stop? 3 years ago. My dad died. I took over his company. And somewhere in all the meetings and mergers, I just stopped. Stopped playing. Stopped feeling much of anything, really. Maya squeezed his hand. I'm sorry. He looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her. I am too. More than you know. They finished eating in comfortable silence, the kind that felt intimate rather than awkward. Ethan cleared the table despite Maya's protests, and when he returned, he had that look again, the one that made her stomach flip. Play something for me, Maya said suddenly. What? On the piano? Play something. Ethan shook his head. I told you, I haven't played in years. So, maybe it's time to start again. She stood, walked over to the piano, and sat down on the bench. Come on. Humor me. You broke into my apartment and destroyed my rug. I think I've humored you plenty. Maya patted the bench beside her. Please? Ethan stared at her for a long moment. Then, as if pulled by a force he couldn't resist, he crossed the room and sat down next to her. The bench was small, meant for one person, and their thighs pressed together. Maya could feel the heat of him, the tension in his body. I don't remember how, he said quietly. Your fingers do. Trust them. Ethan's hands hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. Then, slowly, he began to play. It started hesitant, a few notes that stumbled and stopped. But gradually, muscle memory took over. The melody that emerged was haunting, something classical that Maya didn't recognize, but felt in her bones. His hands moved across the keys with increasing confidence, and she watched his face transform. The walls came down. The careful control melted away. And for those few minutes, Ethan Blackwell wasn't a billionaire or a businessman or whatever armor he wore for the world. He was just a man playing music, and he was beautiful. When the last note faded, silence filled the apartment. Ethan's hands remained on the keys, and Maya could see his shoulders shaking slightly. She didn't think. She just acted. Wrapped her arms around him from the side, pressed her cheek to his shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For letting me see you. Ethan turned on the bench, and suddenly they were facing each other, so close that Maya could count the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing across her skin with devastating gentleness. I haven't felt this alive in 3 years, he said, his voice rough. And you walked into my life by accident, carrying pizza. Some accident, Maya managed, her heart racing. His other hand slid into her hair, and Maya's breath caught. They were balanced on the edge of something, and she knew if she was smart, she'd pull back. Go home. Forget this ever happened. But Maya had never been particularly smart about the things that mattered. Ethan, she breathed. Tell me to stop, he murmured, leaning closer. Tell me this is insane and you need to leave. Maya tilted her face up, her lips a breath away from his. I really need to leave. But I'm not going to. And then he was kissing her, and the entire world condensed to that single point of contact. The kiss started gentle, exploratory, like they were both testing the waters of something vast and dangerous. But gentleness gave way quickly to hunger. Ethan's hand tightened in her hair, and Maya pressed closer, her fingers clutching his shirt like she might drown without something to hold on to. He tasted like wine and possibility, like every reckless decision she'd never let herself make. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "That was," he started. "A mistake," Maya finished, even though every cell in her body was screaming that it was the opposite of a mistake. "Probably," he agreed, but he didn't pull away. "We just met. I crashed into your apartment. This is insane. Completely insane." Neither of them moved. The piano bench was uncomfortable, their position awkward, and Maya had never felt more alive in her entire life. "We should talk about this," Ethan said, his thumb still tracing patterns on her jaw. "Probably," Maya echoed his earlier word. His laugh was soft, almost disbelieving. "You're not making this easy." "Who says I want to make it easy?" That earned her another kiss, deeper this time, more certain. When Ethan's hand slid to her waist, pulling her closer, Maya went willingly. The bench wobbled dangerously, and they broke apart, both laughing. "Okay," Ethan said, standing and pulling her up with him. "Not the piano bench. Definitely not the piano bench." They stood in the middle of his living room, hands still linked, the air between them electric. The sensible thing would be to say goodnight, to let this be a strange, magical evening that stayed contained in its own bubble. Instead, Maya heard herself say, "I don't want to leave." Ethan's expression shifted, vulnerability and desire warring on his face. "You don't have to. I have class tomorrow at 9. I'll set an alarm. I'm probably going to regret this in the morning." "Probably," he agreed again. "But are you going to regret it right now?" Maya looked at him, really looked, at the man who'd been successful enough to buy original Rothkos, but lonely enough to beg a pizza delivery girl to stay. At the walls he kept up, and the cracks she'd somehow slipped through. At the possibility of something she couldn't name, but desperately wanted to explore. "No," she said finally. "Right now, I have zero regrets." The smile that spread across Ethan's face was unguarded, genuine, the kind of expression she suspected he rarely let anyone see. "Then stay," he said simply. "Stay with me tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Maya nodded, and he led her away from the living room, down a hallway lined with more expensive art, into a bedroom that was somehow both luxurious and Spartan. A king-sized bed dominated the space, but the nightstand held only a lamp and a worn paperback. The view from the window was breathtaking, the city spread out like scattered diamonds. "This feels like a dream," Maya said softly. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "If it is," he murmured into her hair, "I don't want to wake up." They stood like that for a while, just looking out at the city, and Maya felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just attraction or spontaneity. This was something deeper, more terrifying. This was the kind of connection that could change everything. "Are you scared?" Ethan asked, as if reading her mind. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "Good," he said, turning her in his arms. "So am I." And then they were kissing again, and talking seemed less important than the way his hands felt sliding up her back, the way she fit against him like she'd been custom-made for this exact moment. Ethan walked her backward until her knees hit the bed, and they tumbled down together, laughing between kisses. The laughter faded as things grew more intense, more urgent. "Maya," Ethan said, pulling back slightly, his breathing ragged. "We can stop. Anytime. We don't have to." "I know," she said, pulling him back down. "But I don't want to stop. Are you sure?" She cupped his face in her hands, making sure he was looking at her. I've spent my entire adult life being careful, being sensible, making the safe choice. And I'm tired, Ethan. I'm so tired of safe. His eyes darkened. Then let's be reckless together. What followed was a blur of sensation and emotion. Clothes discarded, whispered words, the slide of skin against skin. Ethan was gentle but passionate, attentive to every reaction, every sigh. And Maya let herself be present, vulnerable in a way she'd never allowed before. Afterward, they lay tangled together, the city lights painting patterns across the ceiling. Ethan's fingers traced lazy circles on her shoulder, and Maya felt boneless, content in a way that should probably worry her but didn't. That was, Ethan started. Amazing, Maya finished. Unexpected, he countered. Both can be true. His chest rumbled with quiet laughter. Fair point. Maya propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him. The carefully maintained walls were gone completely now, his expression open and almost boyish. What are you thinking? She asked. That I don't know how I'm going to let you walk out of here tomorrow, he said honestly. That this was supposed to be one evening, and now I can't imagine not seeing you again. That you've completely upended my world in the space of a few hours, and I don't know whether to be terrified or grateful. Maya's heart squeezed. Those are a lot of thoughts. He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. What are you thinking? That I came here to deliver a pizza, and ended up delivering myself into something I don't understand, but don't want to run from. That you're probably going to break my heart. That I might let you anyway. Ethan pulled her down, kissing her softly. I don't want to break your heart. But I'm probably going to mess this up. I mess everything up eventually. Then we'll mess it up together, Maya whispered against his lips. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the city humming its endless song beyond the windows. And for the first time in 3 years, Ethan Blackwell slept without nightmares. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Maya Jensen slept without worrying about tomorrow. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and a moment of complete disorientation. This wasn't her cramped room in Queens. This wasn't her lumpy mattress or her roommate's cat scratching at the door. This was a bed that probably cost more than her car, in an apartment that belonged in architectural magazines, and there was a very warm, very solid presence behind her. Ethan. Everything came rushing back. The wrong apartment, the pizza disaster, the wine and conversation, the piano, the kiss, everything that came after. Oh God. Maya turned carefully, not wanting to wake him, and found herself face to face with Ethan Blackwell in the morning light. He looked different asleep. Younger. The sharp angles of his face softened, dark hair falling across his forehead, one arm still draped across her waist, like even unconscious he needed to keep her close. She should feel regret, should be panicking about the fact that she'd just slept with a man whose last name she barely knew. But looking at him, all she felt was a terrifying certainty that she was already in too deep. His eyes opened slowly, and for a moment they were unfocused, still caught between sleep and waking. Then they cleared, locked on her, and a slow smile spread across his face. Hi, he said, his voice rough with sleep. Hi, Maya whispered back. This is real, he said. Last night actually happened. Apparently. I'm about to panic, he admitted. Want to panic together? She suggested. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine, and pulled her closer. I have a better idea. What's that? Let's have breakfast. Pretend this is normal. That beautiful women crash into my apartment every night. Maya raised an eyebrow. Every night. Only on Thursdays, he amended, grinning. And only when they bring pizza. She swatted his chest playfully. I should go. I have class. It's 6 in the morning. You said your class was at 9? Maya bit her lip. I did say that. So, have breakfast with me. Real breakfast. I'll even attempt to cook, though I should warn you my skills are limited to toast and cereal. The thought of leaving, of stepping back into her regular life, where this magical bubble couldn't exist, made her chest tight. Okay. Breakfast. Ethan's smile was brilliant. He kissed her forehead and climbed out of bed, completely unself-conscious about his nudity. Maya allowed herself a moment to appreciate the view before he pulled on sweats and a t-shirt. He tossed her one of his shirts, which hung on her like a dress. "Looks better on you," he said, and there was something in his eyes that made her stomach flip. They made their way to the kitchen, and Maya discovered that Ethan hadn't been exaggerating about his cooking skills. He stood in front of the open refrigerator looking completely lost. "So," he said, "toast?" Maya laughed, nudging him aside. "Let me. I'm magic with limited ingredients." She managed to create a decent breakfast from what little he had: eggs scrambled with cheese, toast with jam she found in the back of the cupboard, and coffee from an expensive machine that had clearly never been used. They ate at the kitchen island, their knees touching, and it felt domestic in a way that should have scared Maya, but instead felt right. "Tell me something," Ethan said, sipping his coffee. "Something you've never told anyone." Maya considered. "I'm afraid I'm going to spend my entire life studying other people's passions without ever living my own. That I'll wake up at 40 and realize I played it safe so long I forgot how to want anything." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "That's exactly how I've felt for 3 years. Like I'm living my father's life instead of my own. Like I'm going through motions of existing without actually being alive. And then you showed up, destroyed my rug, and reminded me what it feels like to want something." "What do you want?" Maya asked softly. "You," he said simply. "I know that's insane. I know we just met. But I want to see where this goes. I want more than one night." Maya's heart hammered. "I want that too. But we need to be realistic. You live in a world of original Rothkos and penthouse apartments. I deliver pizza and share a bathroom with 2 roommates. Those are just circumstances," Ethan argued. "They don't define us." "Don't they?" Maya challenged. "You run an investment firm. I'm a broke grad student. This is like a romantic comedy setup, except in real life, those differences matter. So we figure it out." The conviction in his voice made her want to believe him. "You say that now. But what happens when you get tired of explaining to your business partners why you're dating the pizza girl? What happens when I get tired of feeling like I don't belong in your world?" Ethan set down his coffee cup with a deliberate care. "First, you're not the pizza girl. You're a brilliant woman studying Renaissance art who happens to deliver pizza to pay for school. Second, anyone in my world who has a problem with that isn't someone I want in my life anyway. And third," he reached across and took her hand. "The only world I want to belong to right now is whatever one has you in it." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not?" "It's true, because it makes me want to believe this could actually work, and believing feels dangerous." Ethan stood, walked around the island, and pulled her to her feet. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I'm not asking you to believe in forever. I'm just asking you to believe in right now. Have dinner with me tonight. A real date. Let me prove that this isn't just some crazy dream that ends when you walk out that door." Maya wanted to be practical, wanted to protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak. But looking into his eyes, feeling the warmth of his hands, she couldn't make herself say no. "One date," she said. "But I picked the place. Nothing fancy." Ethan smiled. "Deal. Anywhere you want. And Maya, when you figure out how you want to live your own passion instead of just studying others," his voice dropped to that intimate tone that made her shiver, I want to be there to see it." They stood like that for a long moment, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. Then Maya's phone alarm went off, shattering the bubble. Reality. Calling. She silenced it reluctantly. "I really do have class." "I know." He walked her to the door, and Maya grabbed her delivery bag from where she'd abandoned it the night before. At the threshold, she turned back. "Ethan." "Yeah? Thank you." "For what?" "For making me believe in Reckless for a little while." His smile was soft, genuine. "Thank you for crashing into my apartment and my life." They kissed one more time, soft and sweet and full of promise. Then Maya forced herself to step into the hallway, back into the elevator, back into the early morning city that was just starting to wake up. But everything looked different now. The same streets, the same buildings, but the entire world had shifted on its axis. She pulled out her phone and texted her roommate. "You're not going to believe what happened last night." The response came immediately. "Did you finally finish your thesis chapter?" "Better," Maya typed, grinning like an idiot on the subway. "I delivered a pizza to the wrong address and met someone." There was a long pause. Then, "This better be a good story." "It is," Maya replied. "It really, really is." And as the train carried her toward campus, toward her normal life, she couldn't stop smiling. Because for the first time, normal felt like something she was ready to leave behind. Maya barely paid attention during her morning lecture on Baroque iconography. Her professor droned on about Caravaggio's use of chiaroscuro, and all she could think about was the way morning light had looked on Ethan's face, about his hands on the piano keys, about the way he'd looked at her like she was the most interesting thing in his world. She was so distracted that she didn't notice her best friend Sasha sliding into the seat next to her until an elbow jabbed her ribs. Earth to Maya. "You look like you had an interesting night." Maya felt her cheeks heat. "You have no idea." Sasha's eyes widened. "Oh my God, you actually have a story. Spill. Everything." "Not here," Maya whispered, glancing around at their classmates. After class. Coffee. The lecture dragged on eternally. When it finally ended, Sasha practically dragged Maya to their usual coffee shop, a cramped place near campus that smelled like burnt espresso and had seen better days. They claimed their corner table, and Sasha leaned forward with predatory interest. "Okay. Talk." "So I delivered a pizza to the wrong apartment," Maya started. Sasha waved her hand impatiently. "You already texted that part. Skip to the interesting bit." Maya took a deep breath. "His name is Ethan." "He's—" She paused, trying to figure out how to explain. "Intense. Successful. Lonely, I think." And something about him just clicked. "We talked for hours. He played piano for me. And then—" Her voice trailed off, but her expression said everything. Sasha's jaw dropped. "You slept with him? You, Miss I don't do casual, slept with a complete stranger." "I know," Maya said, burying her face in her hands. "I know. It's insane. I don't do things like this. I have a 5-year plan. I make pro and con lists before I buy shampoo. And I just threw all of that out the window for a guy I met because I delivered pizza to the wrong address. Was it worth it?" Maya looked up, and despite her anxiety, she couldn't help but smile. "So worth it," Sasha squealed, earning them looks from other patrons. Sorry. But oh my God, Maya, you're glowing. You never glow." "I'm not glowing. You're totally glowing." "So what happens now? Is this a one-time thing?" "We're having dinner tonight," Maya admitted. "A real date, which terrifies me, because what if last night was just this perfect bubble, and reality ruins everything? What if we have nothing to talk about when we're not drinking expensive wine and being spontaneous? What if I'm building this into something it's not? Sasha reached across and grabbed her hand. Or what if it's exactly what it feels like? What if this is one of those crazy stories you tell your grandchildren? Maya wanted to believe that. But practical Maya, the one who'd spent years playing it safe, whispered warnings in the back of her mind. "There's more," she said quietly. "More than you already slept with him?" Maya pulled out her phone and did a quick search. Ethan Blackwell. The results that came up made Sasha's eyes bulge. Holy. He's that Ethan Blackwell? The investment genius? The one they call the Wall Street wunderkind? Maya nodded miserably. His apartment has original Rothkos on the walls. Plural. His rug probably cost more than my car. And I'm a grad student who eats ramen 4 nights a week. Sasha was quiet for a moment, studying her friend. "You're looking for reasons to run?" "No, I'm being realistic. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you met someone who makes you happy. Someone who saw you for you, not your bank account or your future prospects. And instead of enjoying it, you're already building walls." Maya knew Sasha was right, but the fear was still there, coiled tight in her chest. What if I'm not enough? What if his world chews me up and spits me out? What if I fall for him and he realizes I'm just what? The pizza girl he had a fun night with? Sasha's expression softened. "Maya, you're brilliant. You're passionate about your work. You're kind and funny and real. If he can't see that, he's an idiot. But from what you've told me, it sounds like he already knows exactly who you are." "Maybe," Maya said quietly. "God, when did I become this person? The one who's afraid to take a chance? About the same time you decided safety was more important than living." Ouch. "Truth hurts, babe." Sasha grinned. "So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go on this date. You're going to be yourself, not some version you think he wants. And you're going to see what happens without writing the ending before you finish the first chapter." Maya took a deep breath. Okay, you're right. Good. Now, more importantly, Sasha leaned forward with a wicked grin. "Tell me everything about the piano playing, because that sounds hot." Maya laughed, feeling some of her anxiety dissolve. It was unbelievably hot. They spent the next hour dissecting every detail of the previous night. Sasha lived vicariously through the story, demanding descriptions of the apartment, Ethan's appearance, even the expensive wine. When Maya finally checked the time, she realized she'd missed her next class entirely. "Don't care," Sasha declared. "This is more important than Renaissance women painters or whatever." "Female Renaissance artists," Maya corrected. "And my thesis advisor is going to kill me. She'll forgive you when you dedicate your doctorate to the pizza delivery that changed your life." Maya rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress her smile. "What am I going to wear tonight? We're going somewhere casual. I don't even know where yet." I told him I'd pick. "Then we're going shopping," Sasha announced, standing up. "But I'm broke. I'll lend you something." "Come on. You're not showing up to your first real date with a billionaire wearing your regular jeans. They're nice jeans. They have a hole in the knee. It's a fashion statement. It's a budget statement. Now, let's go make you look so good he forgets how to form sentences." Despite her protests, Maya let herself be dragged to Sasha's apartment, where her friend had a wardrobe that far exceeded what a grad student should reasonably possess. Sasha had always been better at managing her finances, plus she had parents who actually helped with expenses. After trying on half of Sasha's closet, they settled on dark jeans that actually fit properly, and a soft green sweater that Sasha insisted made Maya's eyes pop. "Not too formal," Sasha said, circling her critically, "but definitely not pizza delivery casual. You look like someone who could absolutely date a billionaire but doesn't need to." "Perfect." Maya studied herself in the mirror. She did look good. Put together, but still herself. Now, Sasha handed her a small makeup bag, just enough to look polished. And for God's sake, don't overthink this. Have fun. Be yourself. See what happens. Maya hugged her friend tightly. Thank you. For what? For not letting me spiral. For reminding me that it's okay to take chances. Sasha squeezed back. That's what best friends are for. Now go. You have a date to prepare for, and I need details tomorrow. All the details. Maya left Sasha's apartment with borrowed clothes and renewed confidence. The afternoon stretched before her, and she used the time to actually work on her thesis for a few hours at the library. But concentration was impossible. Her mind kept drifting back to Ethan, to the way he'd looked at her, to the promise of tonight. Around 5, her phone buzzed with a text. Still on for tonight? And where are we going? I'm dying of curiosity here. Maya smiled and typed back. Still on. Meet me at Giuseppe's on Bleecker at 7. It's a tiny Italian place, cash only. Hope that's okay. His response came immediately. Perfect. Can't wait to see you. 3 words that shouldn't have made her heart race, but absolutely did. Maya went home to shower and change, ignoring her roommate's curious questions. She'd tell them eventually, but right now, she wanted to keep this close, protect it from too many opinions and questions. At 6:30, she headed downtown, arriving at Giuseppe's 10 minutes early. The restaurant was exactly what she'd promised, a hole-in-the-wall place with checkered tablecloths and wine in mismatched glasses. The pasta was incredible, and the prices were reasonable. It was real, unpretentious, and she suddenly worried that it was too casual, too plain for someone like Ethan. But then she saw him walking down the street, and all her worries evaporated. He'd dressed down too, jeans and a simple button-down shirt, and he was looking around with obvious curiosity. When his eyes found her, his entire face lit up. And Maya knew, standing there on a busy New York street with the smell of garlic bread wafting from the restaurant and the sounds of the city all around them, that Sasha had been right. This was worth the risk. This was worth everything. Ethan reached her and immediately pulled her into a hug, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of having met less than 24 hours ago. You look beautiful, he murmured into her hair. You look surprised to see me, Maya teased, pulling back to look at him. Like you thought I might not show. The thought crossed my mind, he admitted. That maybe last night was a dream, and this morning you'd realize you wanted nothing to do with me. Did you consider that maybe I'm the one who thought this was too good to be true? That a successful, gorgeous man would actually want to have dinner at a place that doesn't even have a liquor license? Ethan glanced at the restaurant, then back at her with genuine warmth in his eyes. This is perfect. This is real. I'm so tired of places where the menu doesn't have prices and everyone's performing for everyone else. They went inside, and Giuseppe himself greeted them, a round Italian man who'd been running this place for 40 years. He seated them at a corner table, brought them a carafe of house wine, and immediately started making recommendations in heavily accented English. By the time he bustled away to the kitchen, Ethan was grinning. I love this place already. Maya relaxed. Really? You're not just saying that? Really? His hand found hers across the table. I meant what I said this morning. I want to be in whatever world has you in it, even if that world involves checkered tablecloths and cash-only policies, especially then. They talked while they waited for their food, and it was easier than Maya had feared. Ethan asked about her classes, seemed genuinely interested in her thesis. She asked about his work, and he explained it in a way that wasn't condescending, seemed to actually care that she understood. The pasta, when it arrived, was incredible. They shared dishes, stealing bites from each other's plates, and it felt domestic and comfortable. So, Ethan said, twirling linguine on his fork, Tell me about your 5-year plan." "Sasha has a big mouth," Maya muttered. He laughed. "She texted you?" "No, you mentioned this morning that you make pro and con lists for shampoo." I extrapolated. Maya took a sip of wine, gathering her thoughts. "Okay, finish my master's this year. Apply for doctoral programs, preferably Columbia or NYU. Spend 3 to 5 years on my dissertation. Get teaching positions. Maybe curate exhibitions someday. Publish. Make a name for myself in art history circles. Grow old, surrounded by Renaissance paintings and cats." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "That's a good plan, very thorough. But," I didn't say but, "your face did." Maya sighed. "Fine, it's safe, it's logical, it's everything I should want. But lately I've been wondering if I built it because it's actually my dream or because it felt like the responsible thing to do. What would you do if you weren't being responsible?" The question hung between them. Maya realized no one had ever asked her that before. "I'd travel," she said slowly, the words coming as she discovered them. "Italy. See the actual works I've been studying in books. Maybe teach abroad for a while. I'd write, but not just academic papers. Essays. Maybe a book that people actually want to read, not just other scholars. I'd have a tiny apartment in Florence with a balcony where I could drink coffee and watch the sunrise. And I'd fall in love with someone who saw me as more than my credentials or my plans. Someone who made me want to be reckless." Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. His eyes were intense, focused completely on her. "That sounds like a much better plan. It sounds expensive and impractical. It sounds like living." Maya looked down at their joined hands. "When did you become wise?" "When I met someone who reminded me what it feels like to want something beyond the next quarterly report." She met his eyes again. "This is dangerous, you know. What we're doing." He raised an eyebrow. "Eating Italian food? This. U.S. Whatever this is becoming. We barely know each other." Ethan leaned forward. "Then let's change that. Tell me something real, something you don't tell people." Maya thought for a moment. "I'm terrified of ending up like my mother. She had dreams once, wanted to be a painter. But she married young, had me, and somehow all those dreams just evaporated. She works at a bank now. She's fine, comfortable. But sometimes I catch her staring out windows with this look on her face, like she's mourning a life she never lived. And I'm so afraid that I'll wake up one day and realize I played it so safe that I forgot to actually live." Ethan was quiet, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "My father built an empire," he said finally. "Blackwell Investments was his whole world. When he died, everyone assumed I'd step right in. Be the dutiful son. Take over the legacy. And I did. But I hate it. I'm good at it. I make the company successful. But every day feels like I'm wearing someone else's skin. Like I'm living his life instead of mine. What would you do if you weren't living his life?" Ethan's smile was sad. "I'd sell the company, use the money to fund artists and musicians, people who actually create things, instead of just moving money around. I'd play piano again, maybe teach music to kids who can't afford lessons. I'd live in a smaller apartment that actually felt like home instead of a museum, and I'd spend my time with someone who didn't care about my last name or my net worth, someone who saw me." They stared at each other across the checkered tablecloth, and Maya felt something shift. This wasn't just attraction or chemistry. This was recognition. Two people trapped in lives that didn't quite fit, both terrified of wanting more. "So we're both pretending," she said softly, "living the lives we think we should want instead of the ones we actually do." Ethan nodded. "Seems that way. What do we do about it?" "I don't know." His hand squeezed hers. "But maybe we figure it out together." Giuseppe arrived then with dessert, tiramisu that he insisted they try even though they hadn't ordered it. The moment broke, but the connection remained, thrumming between them like a live wire. They shared the dessert, and Ethan told her stories about disastrous business meetings and eccentric clients. Maya countered with tales of her thesis advisor, a brilliant but scattered woman who once gave an entire lecture with her shirt on backward. When the check came, Maya insisted on splitting it. Ethan looked at her like she'd suggested they rob a bank. Absolutely not. "I'm not a charity case," Maya said firmly, "and I invited you here. This is my place, my rules. We split it, or I'm never letting you pick the restaurant again." "Fine. But next time, I'm taking you somewhere I can actually use a credit card and you're not allowed to argue." "Deal." They stepped out into the cool evening air. The city hummed around them, a symphony of traffic and voices and life. Ethan pulled her close, and they walked slowly, neither wanting the evening to end. "Walk with me?" he asked. "Where to?" "Nowhere specific. I just want more time with you." They walked through the village, past boutiques and bars and late-night coffee shops. They talked about everything and nothing. Books they'd read, movies they'd loved, places they wanted to see. Ethan told her about learning piano from his father, the hours spent at the bench, the way music could say things words couldn't. Maya told him about her first art history class, how she'd seen a painting of Judith beheading Holofernes and felt something awaken inside her. The way women could be both beautiful and dangerous, soft and strong. Eventually, they found themselves in Washington Square Park, sitting on a bench watching street performers and late-night wanderers. "I don't want tonight to end," Ethan said quietly. But I also don't want to rush this. Last night was incredible, but I want you to know I'm not expecting." "A repeat performance?" Maya supplied. He laughed. "I was going to say, I don't want you to think I'm only interested in the physical. Though God knows I wouldn't say no." Maya turned to face him. "I know this is complicated. We live in different worlds. We want different things from life. Tomorrow, I go back to my thesis and my delivery shifts and my cramped apartment. You go back to boardrooms and business deals and your penthouse, and trying to figure out how those two worlds fit together feels impossible." "So don't," Ethan said. "What?" "Don't try to figure it out yet. Just let it be what it is right now. Let's have another date. And another. Let's see each other without trying to solve all the problems before they even exist." Maya wanted to argue, wanted to be practical. But looking at him in the lamplight, his eyes so earnest and hopeful, she couldn't. "Okay. No planning, no 5-year strategy. Just seeing what happens." Ethan's smile was brilliant. He leaned in and kissed her, soft and sweet. And Maya felt herself falling, not just for him, but into possibility, into a version of herself that was brave enough to want things without knowing how they'd work out. When they finally parted, he called her a cab despite her protests about the subway, stood on the curb until it pulled away, watching her leave like he was already counting the hours until he could see her again. In the back of the cab, Maya pulled out her phone and texted Sasha. "Second date. A success. I'm in so much trouble." The response was immediate. Good trouble or bad trouble? Maya looked out the window at the city flying past, thinking about Ethan's hands, his smile, the way he looked at her like she mattered. "The best kind of trouble," she typed back. And for once, she didn't care about the consequences. The next few weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and late-night conversations. Maya and Ethan fell into a pattern, though pattern seemed too organized a word for what they had. It was more like orbit, their lives circling each other, finding ways to connect, despite the very real differences in their worlds. They had dinner dates at hole-in-the-wall restaurants Maya knew, and 5-star establishments Ethan had memberships to. They walked through art galleries on quiet afternoons, with Maya explaining techniques and symbolism while Ethan listened with genuine interest. He came to her cramped apartment once, met her roommates who were too starstruck to be normal humans, and ate Chinese takeout sitting on her lumpy couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maya went to one of Ethan's business dinners and felt completely out of place until he squeezed her hand under the table and whispered, "These people are boring, and you're not. Remember that." They texted constantly, random thoughts and observations, photos of interesting things they saw. Ethan started playing piano again, would send her voice recordings of pieces he was working on. Maya would send him pictures of paintings she discovered in lesser-known museums, explaining why they mattered. But reality had a way of creeping in. 3 weeks into whatever they were calling this relationship, Maya got her credit card bill and realized she'd spent far more than she could afford trying to keep up. New clothes for fancy dinners, cabs instead of the subway, because she was running late from seeing Ethan, neglecting delivery shifts because she wanted to be available when he was free. She stared at the numbers and felt sick. Sasha found her at their usual coffee shop, head in her hands, calculator app open on her phone. "That bad?" "Worse," Maya said without looking up. "I'm behind on my thesis. I've been skipping shifts. And I just spent money I don't have because apparently I thought I could just will myself into belonging in Ethan's world." Sasha slid into the seat across from her. "Have you talked to him about this?" "What am I supposed to say?" "Sorry, dating you is financially devastating me. I'm the one who made these choices. He's never asked you to change or spend money." "No," Maya admitted. "He hasn't. He'd probably be horrified if he knew. So talk to him. Tell him you need to pull back on the expensive places. Go back to delivery shifts. Focus on your thesis. If he's who you think he is, he'll understand." Maya knew Sasha was right, but acknowledging the cracks in their perfect bubble felt dangerous. What if admitting she couldn't keep up meant losing him? That night, Ethan texted asking if she was free. There was a gallery opening he thought she'd love. In the past, Maya would have said yes immediately. Instead, she typed out, "Can't tonight. Thesis deadline." "Rain check." His response came quickly. "Of course. Good luck with the writing. Text me if you need a break. Simple, understanding." So why did Maya feel like she was pulling away from something precious? She spent the next 3 days buried in research and writing, trying to catch up on the work she'd been neglecting. Sasha brought her coffee and snacks, and her roommates learned to recognize when she was in the zone and needed silence. On the 4th day, her phone rang. "Ethan." "You're alive," he said when she answered. The sound of his voice made her chest ache. "I'm alive. Buried in 16th century Venice, but alive. I miss you." Maya closed her eyes. "I miss you too. Can I see you tonight?" "I'll come to you. We can just hang out. Order food. You can work and I'll read or something. Just being in the same room would be enough." The offer was tempting. But Maya forced herself to say, "I need a few more days. To really focus. To catch up." There was a pause. "Okay. But Maya, is everything all right? You've been distant." "I'm fine. Just stressed about school." "If it's more than that," he said carefully, "if I'm pushing too hard or asking too much, tell me." "You're not," she said. And it was true. He wasn't the problem. She was. Her inability to balance her life, her tendency to dive headfirst into things without thinking about consequences. They said goodbye, and Maya went back to her laptop, but the words wouldn't come. All she could think about was the way his voice had sounded, worried and slightly hurt. 5 days later, Maya finished her thesis chapter and emailed it to her advisor. She felt wrung out, exhausted, but accomplished. She picked up a delivery shift that evening, needing the money and the normalcy of her routine. It was raining, the kind of cold November rain that made New York feel hostile. Maya delivered pasta to Murray Hill, Vietnamese food to Chelsea, pizza to the Upper West Side. On her last delivery of the night, tired and soaked through, she looked up at the building address, and her heart stopped. 482 Park Avenue, apartment 23D. She stood in the rain, delivery bag in hand, staring up at Ethan's building. The doorman recognized her and waved her in without question. Maya took the elevator up, each floor bringing a mix of anticipation and dread. She hadn't seen him in almost a week, hadn't really talked beyond brief texts, and now she was showing up in her stained delivery jacket, wet and exhausted, delivering someone else's dinner. When she knocked on 23D, Ethan answered immediately. He must have been notified by the front desk. His expression cycled through surprise, confusion, and then concern. "Maya, you're soaked. Come in." "I'm working," she said stupidly, holding up the delivery bag. "For 23C. "Right." He took the bag gently from her hands. "But first, come inside. Just for a minute." She let him pull her in. The apartment looked the same, beautiful and expensive, and everything her world wasn't. Ethan set the food down and grabbed a towel from somewhere, wrapping it around her shoulders. "You're freezing. I'm fine." "Maya." He stopped her from stepping back. "What's going on? I haven't seen you in almost a week. You barely answer my texts. And now you show up delivering someone else's food, looking like you're carrying the weight of the world." Maya felt something crack inside her. "I can't do this," she said quietly. "Can't do what?" "This." U.S. I've been trying to pretend like the differences don't matter, but they do. I'm drowning, Ethan. I'm behind on my thesis. I'm broke because I've been trying to keep up with your world. And I'm exhausted from trying to be someone I'm not. Ethan's face went very still. "Have I ever asked you to be anyone but yourself?" "No," Maya admitted. "This isn't your fault. It's mine. I lost myself trying to fit into your life, and I don't know how to balance it all. So your solution is to just walk away?" His voice was tight, controlled, but she could hear the hurt underneath. "I don't know," she said, tears mixing with the rain on her face. "I just know that I can't keep going like this. It's not sustainable." "Then we change it," Ethan said urgently, stepping closer. "We go back to simpler things. No more expensive restaurants, no more events. We figure out a way that works for both of us. But walking away isn't the answer." "How?" Maya challenged. "How do we make this work when we live in completely different worlds? You have responsibilities, business dinners, expectations. I have a thesis and bills and a life that doesn't fit with yours no matter how much we want it to. We make it fit. That's not how real life works." "Maybe not," Ethan said, his voice breaking slightly. "But I'm not ready to give up on this. On us. I'm falling in love with you, Maya. And I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I don't care. I'll sell the company. I'll move to a smaller apartment. I'll do whatever it takes." "You can't do that," Maya whispered. "You can't change your entire life for me." "Why not? You're changing yours, trying to fit into mine. That's exactly the problem." She pulled away from him. "We're both bending so far, we're breaking. And eventually we'll resent each other for it." "So what are you saying?" His voice was hollow now. "That I'm saying I need space. Time to figure out my own life before I can be part of yours." Ethan ran his hand through his hair, looking lost in a way that made Maya's heart shatter. How much space? How much time? I don't know. The delivery bag sat forgotten on the counter. The apartment felt colder now, or maybe that was just the absence of warmth between them. "If this is what you need," Ethan said finally, his voice carefully controlled, "then I won't fight you on it. But Maya, know that I'm not giving up. I'll be here whenever you're ready. If you're ready." Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She turned to leave, picked up the other delivery bag. At the door, she paused. "I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for knowing what you need." His voice was gentle, but she could hear the pain in it. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself." "I will." She forced herself to walk out, to deliver the food next door with shaking hands, to take the elevator down and step back out into the rain. In the cab on the way home, she let herself cry. Because loving someone wasn't always enough. Because sometimes the bravest thing was admitting you weren't ready. Because she just walked away from the best thing that had ever happened to her, and she didn't know if she'd made the right choice or the biggest mistake of her life. The following 2 weeks were the hardest of Maya's life. She threw herself into work, completing her thesis chapter, picking up extra delivery shifts, trying to fill the Ethan-shaped hole in her days with productivity. But everything reminded her of him. The pizza boxes she delivered, the classical music that played in coffee shops, the rain against her window at night. Sasha tried to help, bringing food and forcing Maya to take breaks, but even her best friend couldn't fix this. One night, sitting in their usual spot, Sasha finally said, "You know you can call him, right?" "Space doesn't have to mean silence." Maya shook her head. "I needed to figure out who I am without him. What I actually want instead of what I think I should want." "And have you?" "Not yet. But I'm getting there." Her thesis advisor called her in for a meeting, and Maya expected criticism for the delays. Instead, Professor Chen looked at her over reading glasses and said, "This is your best work yet. There's passion here. Truth. Whatever's been happening in your life, it's made your writing come alive." Maya left the meeting feeling lighter. Maybe falling apart had been necessary to figure out how to put herself back together properly. She started writing differently, not just academic analysis, but personal essays about art and passion and living authentically. She submitted one to a small online magazine on a whim and was shocked when they accepted it. Small steps, building a life that felt like hers. But she still thought about Ethan constantly, wondered if he was okay, if he missed her as much as she missed him, if she'd been brave in walking away, or just a coward who ran from something real. 3 weeks after their last conversation, Maya was walking home from campus when she heard it. Piano music, drifting from an open window. She stopped, frozen on the sidewalk. It was coming from a community center she passed every day, but had never really noticed. The music was beautiful, achingly familiar. She followed the sound inside. The community center was humble, worn but welcoming. A sign pointed toward the music room. Maya walked slowly, her heart pounding. And there he was. Ethan sat at an old upright piano, surrounded by a group of children. He was teaching them a simple melody, his hands guiding theirs over the keys, his expression patient and warm. One of the kids played a wrong note, and Ethan laughed, the sound genuine and free. "That's okay," he was saying. "Mistakes are how we learn. Try again." Maya stood in the doorway, unable to move. This was the Ethan he'd talked about wanting to be. Teaching music to kids who couldn't afford lessons. Living authentically instead of playing a role. He looked up and saw her. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the room. Then one of the kids tugged his sleeve. "Mr. B, who's that?" "That," Ethan said, his eyes never leaving Maya's face, "is someone very important." The lesson ended a few minutes later. Parents came to collect their children, and Ethan spoke to each one warmly, clearly knowing them by name. When the last kid left, it was just the two of them. "You're teaching," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I sold the company," Ethan said simply. 3 weeks ago. Shocked the board. Disappointed a lot of people. But I couldn't keep living that life. "Ethan, I'm using the money to fund programs like this. Music education for underserved kids, arts grants, things that actually matter." He stood, walked closer. And I moved. Smaller apartment in Brooklyn. Still nice, but it feels like mine, not my father's. Maya felt tears building. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to do it for myself, not to win you back. You were right, Maya. We were both bending too far. I needed to figure out who I actually wanted to be. They stood a foot apart, the air between them electric. I've been working on myself too, Maya said. Finished my thesis chapter. Started writing essays. Figuring out what I actually want instead of what I think I should want. And what do you want? Ethan asked softly. Maya took a breath. I want to finish my degree, but then maybe travel. See the art I've been studying, write about it in ways that make people care. I want to teach eventually, but on my terms. And I want. She met his eyes. I want you, if you still want me. If we can figure out how to do this as the people we actually are, instead of who we were trying to be. Ethan closed the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands. I never stopped wanting you. Not for a single day. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home and setting out on an adventure all at once, like finding something she'd been searching for and discovering something entirely new. They talked for hours in that community center music room, sitting side by side on the piano bench. Made plans that felt real this time. Ethan would teach music and fund arts programs. Maya would finish her degree and then spend a year in Italy, writing and researching. They'd visit each other. Make it work because they both wanted to, not because they were trying to force something. This is going to be hard sometimes, Maya said. Long distance, different paths. Probably, Ethan agreed, but I'd rather have hard and real than easy and fake. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. Play something for me. Ethan's hands found the keys, and he played the same melody he'd been teaching the kids, but elaborated, turned into something beautiful and complex. Maya closed her eyes and listened, and for the first time in weeks, she felt at peace. When he finished, she said, I'm going to write about you, you know. About this. About pizza deliveries and piano music and learning to be brave. Will you change my name to protect the innocent? Absolutely not. You're going to be famous as the billionaire who gave it all up for piano lessons and a pizza girl. Former pizza girl, he corrected. I quit last week. The hours were killing my thesis work. Ethan laughed, pulling her closer. So what now? Now, Maya said. We take it one day at a time. We build lives we're proud of and see if they fit together. They will, Ethan said with certainty. How do you know? Because we're not trying to force it anymore. We're just being ourselves, and ourselves want to be together. Maya kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. Outside the community center, the city hummed its endless song. Inside, two people who'd found each other by accident were choosing each other on purpose, and somewhere in the distance, a piano played. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories. And check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.